Welcome to another edition of Lakers Fast Break Spotlight on Lakerholics Weekend. I'm your host, Jamie Sweet. With me, as always, is Laker Tom and Michael H. From Hawaii and Santa Clarita, respectively. Tom's like, I don't live in Santa Clarita. Marin County, respectively.
Marin County, California.
We're going to kick today's show off by encouraging everybody to go vote. If you haven't voted, go vote. I'm not telling you how to vote. Go vote. Do what your heart tells you. Go vote. Be an adult. It's adulting 101. All right. With that out of the way. The Lakers won last night. Some would say by the hair of their chinny chin chin. Morning, cool bro. Morning, Doobie. And cool bro, I'm nobody's master. All right. Just search the thesaurus. Find another term. I'm master of none. More of a jack of all trades kind of a guy. Let's say that had that game been a loss last night, it would have been more of a. I was talking with Tom about this before he popped on. It would have been more of a agonizing loss than it was a triumphant victory, because of how the Raptors are obviously not a win now team. They're kind of a transition phase. Although I always feel like Indiana, they're always pretty competitive. They play hard. They've got long guys. They've got a lot of raw talent on that team, and they just need to find some more refined skill. It would have been interesting. Go ahead.
They're also one of the highest scoring teams in the league, so
they play at a high pace. They play at a very high pace, which I thought gave us a problem at the end of the game when we were starting to run out of gas, because we hit them hard early and never really kind of sustain that, which is always how it is. Same thing with Phoenix, right? You get that big lead, and that I was having visions of the Phoenix game dance through my head where it was like, we got this big lead early. It's not just the Lakers. Every team has a hard time keeping a big lead in the NBA. It's just part of the NBA. Like, the other team is going to start to chip away. Although we didn't do that against Cleveland. Generally speaking, the other team starts to chip away, and you whittle it down to once you get it in single digits, and if there's 5 or so minutes left in the fourth quarter, it really is anybody's ball game. So,
you also have the factor that there are 10 teams now that are shooting over 43s a game.
There's that as well.
Chipping away is
easier.
It's an understatement for what happens in a 3-point game.
It can, yeah. If somebody gets out like that,
Grady Dick starts nailing crazy.
That guy went off last night.
Yeah, he did.
Anyway, I'm gonna do one at a time, and Michael, we'll start with you. Let's start with your thoughts on this road trip. As so far, we're a little bit past the median. How are you feeling about the road trip? Obviously, the record isn't great, but that's not indicative of exactly of what we're talking about. Like, how do you feel the team looks?
Well, I was really
excuse me,
disappointed about the Suns game. That was the game that kind of got me a little bit, because that was very winnable, and we probably should have won that game. And I had hoped that we were going to split Suns Cleveland and win one of the two. That was my hope. They look great, and Suns is a good team. So I mean, it's no disgrace to lose to them on their home court in a close game. The Cleveland game was a debacle, but it kind of pointed out to me that we could really use a second big, because Mobley was killing us. Yeah. That Jarrett Mobley combo is what was really killing us, and
we really can't handle that.
Mobley was LeBron's guy most of the time,
right? Except
when LeBron went out, then they'd slide.
Yeah, but that was LeBron's worst game as a Laker, probably.
Yeah, that was. But the thing about it is that at 4-2, looking at the beginning, our schedule coming into the year, I'm completely satisfied with 4-2, and we have a couple of games against Memphis that can be tough, but the next 10 isn't as daunting as our first 5 games were.
Or first.
Yeah, so I'm okay with it. I was looking at it was kind of funny because Tom had posted on Lakerholics that the Cavs backcourt killed us. We did the best job against the Cavs backcourt of anybody in the last several games. I mean, they went off for 59 against the Knicks and all of those perimeter defenders. They did 47 against the Magic last night, and the Magic has, Suggs, who was a second team all defender, and KCP.
Right.
So they're gonna, they're the only undefeated team. And everybody was talking
about OKC is still undefeated as well.
Oh yeah. Who?
OKC is still
undefeated. Oh yeah, OKC. Well. That's right. But everybody's talking about Boston and the Knicks coming into the season. Don't sleep on the Cavs, man.
Don't sleep on the Cavs.
I agree with that. Their starting lineup is really good.
And they have a starter out.
Man for man against the lineup against us.
Yeah.
But,
they have a starter out, and I would argue that they go 7 deep on that team. I would argue that they go at least 7 deep pretty hard and pretty solidly. Tom, your thoughts on the road trip?
Well, I feel pretty much the same as Michael did, that I'm happy with 4-2, especially when I look at the next 10 games. We could easily go 9-1 or 8-2 in the next 10 games. They're 7-3, and then we're going to have an excellent record at that point in time. So I'm satisfied with where we are, and I like the fact that we performed well at the start. I think that I like the adjustment that JJ made, where he's going to now start playing D'Lo with AR, D'Lo with AD.
LeBron. AD. Yeah.
LeBron and Reeves as a duo. And I think that's a great foundation for the rotation.
Yeah.
Because this was one of the big problems that Ham had, that he didn't, number one, have any rules about. You got to always have a big man on there, and you got to always have a point guard and these types of things. And I like that JJ is looking at these combinations, because I think that's a really important differentiator between the starting lineup and between the rotations that go in after the starting lineup. It takes a rest. The schedule looks good. We're not shooting threes. We're not hitting threes. We're really getting carried by Anthony Davis's terrific performances,
and free throws.
Yeah, and free throws. But that's our game. And when you talk about AD being even more attacking, it just adds to it. I was really happy to see that LeBron was sick and against the Cavs game.
Yeah,
because,
I think.
Otherwise, if he hadn't been sick, that was a scary game, because that looked like Father Time was getting some punches in on our boy, and I didn't like that at all. But LeBron looked good. LeBron looked good last night. So, we're going to see more of this because he's getting older, man. But AD is picking up the pace, and and AD is leading the league in points, rebounds. He's in the top 5 in blocks and steals. You couldn't ask for more. I just hope he can stay healthy, man.
Yeah, right now he's MVP.
Every game there's 2 or 3 plays that almost stepping on top of that basketball when he's running down the court. Jesus.
Right now he's number 1 in MVP straw polls.
Yes, I think so too, and
I think that's fair. I think if they have a top 5 record, he should be up there in that conversation all season long. I think it's going to take a top 5 record, though. I don't think you can be a play-in team and have the MVP on.
Maybe 6.
Yeah, no,
maybe top 6.
Maybe you definitely have to make the playoffs, and I feel like
I think Michael's right. Top 6. We just can't be a play-in team again. You're not gonna get.
He won't win a major award on a play-in team. It's just he won't win Defensive Player of the Year. He won't win MVP. He'll be another All NBA guy, and that's fantastic and wonderful and all that jazz. But that he came into the season. To me, that's been the hunger that AD is showing, and he kind of illustrated. You kind of felt it coming all summer long, with every interview he gave during the Olympics, with every preset where he was like, "I'm not going to win any awards. I'm never going to be. They don't care about me. I'm an afterthought. Nobody's going to." And so he was like, "You want to see what an afterthought really looks like?" And so he's playing like that, and I couldn't be happier, to be honest.
But I couldn't be happier either. What's really funny about it is that I think people don't really understand how difficult it is to take to take the torch from LeBron James. I mean, it's not like he's handing it. It's not like he's holding it out there and saying, take it.
It's not supposed to be like that, though. Like
Yeah.
everybody wanted the same thing from Pau Gasol, right?
Well,
Everybody was like,
we all expected that LeBron would go out like everybody else did,
Well, that's true. That's
the goddamn guy hasn't done it, man. I mean,
no, he hasn't.
Well,
And
JJ's the first guy to try. JJ's the first guy to try.
Yeah,
he really has made a concerted effort of making it a focal point of the game plan, not just.
And LeBron seems to have bought into it, and AD seems to have bought into it.
It doesn't. But those are the two that don't need to buy into it. Frankly, it's the rest of the team. The rest of the team looks to LeBron to bail them out, and it used to be the same with Kobe. It used to be the same with Kareem. It used to be the same with Magic, and that's why they're paid an ungodly sum of money, right? They're the superstar. They're supposed to be the guy that does everything. But when you have two of those guys and one's older and one's transitioning into that role and isn't like an organically built, like AD isn't organically built, I think, in his mentality to be like, no, I think he came to the Lakers being like, LeBron, I'm going to do everything in my power to extend your greatness we're going to win together. We're doing this together. Right. And it was as much of a duo as it is a great player, and that's showed up on the court. But this is the season, I think, where AD, if he doesn't play on offense like he plays on defense, we saw it last season. It's a problem. It's a problem when he disappears on offense for a quarter or a half or a game. Like
has he done that so far though in the first 5 games? That's a big problem.
Right, but I mean, it's a long season. Yeah, as we said, we want him to stay healthy. But that's what has to be the focus. And I think that, and if you look at shot charts, you'll see the games where we struggle. They go away from him. Like he'll have like 10 shots in one quarter, and then it'll be like 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. And you're like, no. That has to be over 5 no matter what, and closer to 10 every single quarter. He has to put that amount of pressure on the interior defense every single quarter in order for everything else to work. Otherwise, you start to see games like Phoenix. You start to see games like Cleveland. And Cleveland just manhandled us. We were never close. It was never a competitive game. After the first 7 minutes, that game was effectively over. We never mounted a serious comeback. It's great seeing Bronny get 2 points on a step back.
The size injuries have really killed us, because I thought, I look back at that second Suns game, and the one thing about the switch everything 1 to 4 is that it makes it easier for them to isolate on D'Lo, and man, they were picking on D'Lo.
It also makes it easier for them to get in the seams. We're going to talk about the switch everything in a minute, but there's a question for you here, Tom, and I think I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well, Michael. And let's try to keep it short and simple. We don't need to get all into why we would do the trade or whatever. We all agree with the player is a great player. Laker Tom, do you think we will trade for Dennis Schroeder again? And it's funny that this question was asked of you because you just posted this on Lakerholics.com.
Yeah,
feel free to pop by Lakerholics.com, where we continue our banter in digital writing. Yes or no, both of you, real quick.
At this point in time, I would. Here's my problem with D'Angelo Russell. And I'm in those constant battles because I'm a D'Lo fan.
I just absolutely love how I said real quick, and then you start right into a long-winded.
No, I'll try to keep it fairly short. So while I'm a D'Lo fan, I think it's inevitable that he's going to get traded. And the problem with trading D'Lo is getting back true value, because you need to get a replacement for him as well as being able to, make it a trade that gives some value. And everybody's acting like D'Lo has zero value, which is probably more a marketing stance. But I like the idea of the problem with trading for Schroeder is that he's really playing extremely well now. And there's a good argument that he will continue to play that way because it's exactly what he did during the Olympics. He was really tremendous, and he's played the same way. So if they were willing to make a trade, I would do it. I wouldn't. You can't give up a first-round draft pick for him, so it has to be a straight-up trade involving a couple of other players, and that's a deal that there's not many options that we have for trading D'Angelo Russell and ending up with a point guard who can do the job, who could fit on the team. And I once said that I would never ever support Dennis Schroeder coming back to the Lakers after he stopped in the middle of a game and just quit, but. Yeah. I'm over that at this point. I would do the deal if we could.
And I think he's learned a lot of lessons since then. Michael, thoughts on that?
Well, for me, maybe now he never was a comfortable fit with the Lakers and LeBron.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
he is a true point guard, and LeBron has had difficulties playing with true point guards. So now with JJ, and I know it's hard to believe, Laker fans, but we actually run plays now. We might be able to, he might do better with the Lakers now that he did in the past. Before, our offense was give it to LeBron, get out of the way, and be ready to shoot in case he kicks it to you. That was our offense under numerous coaches. But JJ is running plays, and that's another reason why you're seeing AD having such a great year. They're running plays for AD. Never used to run plays for AD. So
and that's a good way to make sure that he doesn't get lost.
Yeah. So that's my thing with trading. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know if we should or not, just because he has been so much better everywhere else he's went except for with us.
Right. Well, I think that comes down to what you're saying, is that his usage is higher in other places because they depend on him to create and initiate the offense. And it's not necessarily.
There's also the Darvin Ham thing to look at too.
Well, he's not as good a 3-point shooter as D'Lo, which for the Lakers, I think
3.6% from 3 now.
No, I mean now, but historically, his strength is to drive the ball into the defense and make plays around in the paint and around the rim. He's making 12-7 this season, which means you'd have to do a trade that involves Jalen Hood-Schifino and Max Christie. And I would love to send out 2 players. Any trade the Lakers make, I feel like
you got to get it.
You have to send out one more player or 2, ideally, than you are bringing back, because then you create so much more flexibility in terms of just how the roster can even function than we have right now. And right now we are like up against the cap, up against the maximum roster slot. So there's such a minute amount of wiggle room that it makes a trade more unlikely in most cases. I think that if you look, I mean, the problem you have to say, like, well, what's the impetus for Toronto to do that? They're getting a young player, Max Christie. They're short on guards still. They still have too many rangy winged players, and that's just where they're at. And so I could imagine a world where they're like 2 for 1. We get D'Lo, who's an Jalen Hood-Schifino, who's now an expiring contract, based on our declining of our option on him, which is what we'll transition to smoothly next after this, and Max Christie, who is on a reasonable deal, cheaper, arguably about the same player as Dennis Schroeder potentially. Not now,
except he has the worst plus minus in the entire league.
Yeah, but he's Max Christie. I know. We'll get into Max and all that in a minute. So
he actually played well last night.
He played pretty well last night. I thought it was one of his better games last night. But he's definitely struggling in his new semi-consistent role. But as I said, we're now transitioning smoothly into the Lakers decline the option on Jalen Hood-Schifino. I was negative surprised. It's because, and it's the smart move for Rob to do, because you don't need another year to see that he just doesn't fit on the Lakers, right? You don't need another year to see that his body either can't handle the NBA because he's constantly getting hurt.
And we need the roster spot.
We need the roster spot, and expiring money is going to be valuable, right? Because of how this last summer worked, any amount of wiggle room a team that's up against the cap that they can create before going into the summer is important. Any amount that you can decrease your tax bill before the season ends is important for teams that aren't going to compete. And by the time February 6th rolls around, some teams are going to be having to make that decision. I don't expect the Lakers to be very active up until the trade deadline, which I do believe is February 6th this year. And that's just my opinion. I know that some people are going to be hoping for a December 15th trade or a January trade. I just think that because of how the season works now, with the play-in spots, with the lottery being what it is, there's less and less of a impetus to do an earlier midseason trade. You either do what we saw right before, where with the Randall for Towns, where you still at least get to roll into the season with the team that you're hoping to compete with for the majority of the year, or you take it right up into the deadline and say, well, we have to decide by now whether we're going to cut bait or run or kind of stick with it and see what happens. And there's a few teams out there that wouldn't be surprised to see them cut bait and run a little bit, just based on the early season returns. Indiana's starting off a little bit disappointing. Memphis is starting off really great. I could have seen Memphis and Indiana kind of going either way, and I expected them to actually switch places. I expected Indiana to start better and Memphis to struggle a little bit, but they haven't had any problem integrating Ja Morant at all, and he's playing great. Obviously, was anybody surprised that the Lakers declined the team option on Jalen Hood-Schifino?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. So, and nobody really sees him fitting on the team, right? Not as currently constructed.
He was a Darvin Ham hire, man. That's the difference.
We'll never know.
Based upon the coach.
He was a pick. He wasn't a hire.
No,
yes.
He was. This is the thing that people, he hasn't done well. Some guys don't do well when they're drafted in the NBA.
So they call it a draft.
He was a high. He was being projected as a end of the lottery pick. He was being projected anywhere from 10 to 14. So it wasn't exactly like other teams, that people were not seeing talent in him. And as far as, and he was
just who we could have picked instead of him.
He was Rob's guy, not Darvin Ham's guy.
I kind of agree with that because the D'Lo situation was not yet resolved at the time. I believe D'Lo was going to be an unrestricted free agent that summer, and so I think the Lakers were concerned.
An interesting thing popped up that Utah kind of has some interest in him. And
fantastic.
We kind of have some interest in a certain center that they have.
Awesome. I'm all in. I'm all in for what does Kessler make? 12?
No, he makes $2.5 million. He's on a rookie contract.
I'd trade JHS and 2 second rounders for Walker Kessler right now.
They need at least one.
They won't do that. Danny Ainge is going to be like, he's a 4 first-round draft pick player if I ever saw one, and he'll happily walk that down the aisle all the way to the end of the season. So it's probably going to be that they're going to keep him as a restricted free agent this summer and match a reasonable deal and not match an unreasonable deal, and that's just how Danny Ainge functions. And it's a smart way to run your team, frankly. If you're not a major market team, you have to run it smart, and Danny Ainge runs the team smart. It's infuriating for fans who want his players, but it's just how he does things. All right, so next up on my list of things to talk about is Max Christie. I think that for the bench is obviously the biggest problem, right? And people are saying, like, if Dalton Connect doesn't do this, that, or the other thing, and so far that has proven true. If Dalton Connect doesn't score 10 plus points, the bench doesn't score 10 plus points. You know what I mean? Like, nobody on the bench is scoring. Yeah. Jackson Hayes he's not somebody who gets his own shot. Gabe isn't somebody who aggressively hunts his own shot. Dalton Connect is a release valve on offense, and so it generates offense.
He's been a disaster.
And Max Christie has been a disaster, right? And so, again, it's early. This is more of a role than he's ever had in the NBA. So in my mind, there's a small grace period where you allow the guy to try to adapt. He's never had he's never played this sort of role.
He's never had this kind of pressure on him.
He's never had this kind of pressure on him. And it's a lot. And I think that they're going to give him 20 games in this role, right? In this 10 to 15 minutes a game slot, backup guard, first guard off the bench behind Vincent, first shooting guard off the bench, if you will. I think they're going to give him at least 20 games to 15, acclimate.
15 games.
You say 15? I just think that they'll give him a quarter of the season. But if it doesn't,
for me, my guess is he has until Vando comes back.
That's probably
that might be 3/4 of the season.
That might be a while. We don't know.
Come on, we can't wait that long.
We might have to, but I think that's a pretty.
Who else are you going to bring in?
That's my question. Is like, even if you give up on Max Christie, that means you turn to Cam Reddish. That's the only other person. That's the only other person who
Dalton Connect.
I don't think you can start Dalton Connect, and I don't think you want to run Dalton.
You're not going to start him, but he should be the first guy off of the bench. It shouldn't be Max coming in anymore.
Yeah,
and he's a guard. He's going to play guard because we need more size in the starting lineup.
Yeah, but he's going to get killed guarding guards. He's not fleet of foot. He's a rookie. And this is why I think they're actually handling Dalton Connect. I need some JV negativity in my life. Don't worry, JSJ. It's coming. It's coming. There's some real truth coming here eventually. Not really. It's just thoughts. I just feel like there's not a good option. Max Christie is kind of like into that role right now. And as you said, Michael, until potentially Jared Vanderbilt comes back, or there's an argument that could be made that the Lakers go even bigger and play Rui down a slot and have more like Wood Hayes, AD Wood Hayes. Seems untenable. That seems like too big, too slow up front. But you start looking at combinations like that, right? Where, okay, if Wood comes back first, is there a world where like Rui never plays?
What is the time? What are we expecting as the timeline for these three players that we need? These three big players that we don't have now. When is
Jared Vanderbilt is neither is cleared for contact. So
probably Vanderbilt's a month away from really playing.
I don't know. It's kind of vague as far as
you're saying. Look at him in a week or two,
right?
So let's see. He's a month away. Wood is probably 2 to 3 weeks away, maybe a month. Koloko probably needs a month to get going. So there's a month that we've got where we're going to have to live in November with the team we've got. Now it's not bad because the schedule is kind of in our favor. There's 10 games in November.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they're winnable. They're all winnable games, but
they're not like the first 5 games. Okay, we don't really play any tough teams in there. The Grizzlies are probably the toughest teams, and maybe the Sixers if
they ever get their stars to play.
Yeah. They'll probably both show up on the Friday we play them. We all know that.
What were they thinking signing Paul George? That they would actually get 50 games? Jeez.
They might get 50.
But anyway, there's a reason to make a trade right now. There's several reasons. One is we need size.
Sure.
Second is we need a roster spot. We could easily bring in Lonnie to fill a spot that Christie is not filling right now, and he can do that job for us. But we don't have a roster spot, so we need to make a trade for a roster spot. We need to get some size. And
nobody's doing trades right now. That's the problem. Nobody's doing trades. I don't see any trades happening. They're just. It's too early in the season.
I think that you'll see other teams that have immediate needs not wanting to wait until February 6th. Now, you don't think we're going to trade D'Lo until you get up to the deadline because his value right now, apparently, around the league is going to be the expiring contract. And that'll be valuable at 18.6, when we get to January. But before then, the last thing I want to do, for example, is to trade for a mediocre center who can't shoot over 30% from 3 and so forth. I'd rather take a chance on a young guy or even Christian Wood. I just don't like the idea of waiting till December 15th to get the old center that.
See, that's my argument for not doing any trades. We got to see.
Well, I'd like to do a small trade. I'd like to do a small trade for a center that's not making a lot of money. I think if we could get Kessler, that'd be great. If we could get, there's 3 or 4 guys out there that I might be willing to take a gamble on because we just need some size right now. If we got some size, we could be in first place by the end of November in the West, or second place behind.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's passing OK. I think OKC's on a mission. Regular season,
we could finish. We could easily be a second or third team in the West.
If we finish top, I'll be happy. If we finish top 4, I will be beyond happy. I know somebody was asking for negativity. If we finish, I have us finishing 8th this season. All right, like if we cut my expectations in half and improve by 4 places in the hierarchy of the playoffs, that would be not only a validation of the players that were.
We might have to get an intervention for you.
But no, I don't need intervention. But it would also be a validation of JJ Redick as a head coach and that choice of the front office, and validating for the front office to like pull the plug on the Darvin Ham experiment early and say, no, we can see that this isn't going to work well. The locker room vibe isn't great. The winning isn't happening on the court, whether the locker room vibe is great or not. this isn't how we want to move forward. And those are bold choices, right? Those are just, you don't make those choices in a vacuum. So I agree, JSJ. Well, I'd be happy if we avoid the plane as well. You're not going to, when it comes to awards and all that thing, it's important to the players. It's never important to me. I like it when one of our guys wins an award. Like when Lamar Odom won Sixth Man of the Year, I was very happy to see Lamar Odom's, just to feel, it's a justification and a validation, a validation of, your time and effort. But in terms of like how I feel about the Lakers, it doesn't really matter, right? Like I just want us to win. It's all everyone. That's all. One thing.
Yeah, the championship is all that really counts.
It's all that matters to me, right?
Yep.
If you put it's a great team. It's a great team if you put another banner up on the wall, and whatever happened over the course of the regular season, that's fantastic.
Well, those other things are what you are happy for if you don't win the championship.
All right. So
one thing on this point before we move on,
please.
I think that JJ's new rotation will help our second unit.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because we need to score. We need some scorers playing with those guys. So
and just essentially saying that every second unit that's on the floor is either going to have LeBron and AR or D'Lo and AD.
Right.
And I think it makes sense to try to generate like a cohesiveness. If you're going to break it up into two squads, right? You don't just want to like switch the squad up every night and be like, well, now let's try this. Well, now let's try that. Well, now let's try this. Well, now let's try it.
That's Darvin Ham.
I was going to say that was very much how the Lakers felt last season. He'd give it like maybe 2 or 3 games, and then be like, doesn't work. And it was like, well, let's.
And also you have Max on the floor. You have Max on the floor with AD.
Yeah. No, and I thought that was. I thought that was one of the things that helped Max last night. And I think we all want everybody on the team to succeed. We're all not we're not giving up on anybody. It's just that we also see the writing.
We've all given up on JHS. What do you mean? Come on.
All right. You're right.
We've all given up on Reddish, Lewis, and JHS.
I haven't given up on Cam. I haven't given up on Cam. He's going to contribute this season.
No, he's gone.
I'm not talking about next season, next summer. I'm talking about right now. He's on the roster right now.
He's gone.
Whatever.
He will be gone before the end of the year.
You want to bet $2?
Sure. Want to bet $2,000?
No, 2. I top it out.
Come on.
Max should never drive. Actually, I disagree with this. Max took it hard to the hole, got fouled at the top.
Max takes it to the heart of the hole and gets blocked almost every game.
He doesn't have great hops.
He needs, you figure out in life what you can do and what you can't do. And then you stop doing the shit that you can't do.
You know his problem?
Or else life is not going to be very good to you.
His problem is he has to dunk with 2 hands each time.
Yeah, he can't go up with 1 hand.
If he could dunk with 1 hand, he wouldn't have gotten blocked nearly as many times. But he's
a good enough jumper that he needs to understand he's got to hang and crash into the defender. And then
he last night.
He was better at that last night, and he's also doesn't have the quickest release on his jump shot. So like it's all of these like are it's like obstacles he's got to overcome. He either has to get that jump shot off quicker or just be more decisive. Like Dalton Connect, you don't see a lot of hesitation. When Max Christie gets the ball, he's still thinking a lot, and that's what I mean. I think there's going to give him 20 games to acclimate to this level of like competition because it's just. Bronny had more playing time than Cam last night. It's true. But I think that, listen, I think that one of the reasons Cam isn't getting time is because of both Max Christie and Rui Hachimura. And if they pull the plug on Max Christie at 20, 15, whatever amount of games in, the only guy you can turn to is Cam Reddish on the roster right now. That or it's like Maxwell Lewis.
Give Oliveri a chance.
Olivari, right? Those guys are just going to get murdered. They're going to get murdered. Cam Reddish is better than both those guys, especially on defense. I would love to see.
That. I don't know about that.
I mean, Olivari has a chance to show me something, but I think that
I'd sure give Olivari a chance because he can make shots, man.
Yeah, and he plays.
What do we need on the bench? We need guys who can make shots.
Yeah, we need guys who play defense too, but yeah, both. I mean, okay, so let's talk about the Laker bench, and let's talk about some not advanced, but like basic stats. I don't know after last night. Up until last night, the Lakers were by far the worst team at giving up transition baskets. And we were going back and forth about this a little bit on the blog the other day. Michael, I thought you had an excellent point to that in large part has been fueled by a lot of our really, really egregious turnovers. A lot of just like bad, sloppy passes.
At midcourt.
Unnecessary passes. Right. Unnecessary passes. Like you're just being lazy.
Live ball turnovers. Just
being lazy basketball. And I thought that we saw them attempt to clean that up last night. Now, it's hard to know about if that's true. Toronto is not a great defensive team right now. They played at high pace. So there's a lot of back and forth basketball as we saw. We lapped them twice from the free throw line, which is the way we're winning basketball games, which is kind of the same way we won basketball games last season, where you saw that if we didn't dominate the free throw line like we didn't against Phoenix, you lost close games. And when we did dominate the free throw line, we generally won, except for that we lost against Cleveland in that regard, because we just let Cleveland get whatever they wanted all game long. And so the point I'm trying to make here, and the question I want to put to you guys is, at what point do you sacrifice pace for defense? Because the Laker bench is playing at the fastest pace, one of the faster paces in the league. And the Lakers don't seem to be winning those minutes. So it's hard for me to see a good way. I look at the bench as being the biggest riddle to solve. How do we make the bench not suck? If they can just get to a net zero.
Let me ask you this. Who would be the bench if we didn't have any injuries? Who's in the 9-man rotation if we don't have injuries?
I think Max Christie.
Sure.
I think Vando swaps out for Max and probably some of Hayes' minutes.
And Vando for Max for sure, and maybe some of Hayes. I still want to see a little bit of Christian Wood when he comes back, if he can regain his shooting touch or not. He played some good minutes with AD. And his defense was better than advertised last year, just that his offense deserted him. I'd like to see.
You got two guys that are probably going to move into the rotation, or they'll expand the rotation to 10. See, a lot of the problems I see now, I find it interesting because I'm not really. I would like to get a trade if we can get a small quality trade that we could solve and get some more size for the next month to go through. But I think that we can probably, as a team, we're talented enough, I think, with JJ as the coach, that we can get through these month of November. And then hopefully by the end of November, we'll at least get one or two of these three guys that are bigs back on the lineup in the roster, so we aren't just, I can't stand the situation. It seems like 4 years in a row we've been having little 6'3" guys guarding 6'8" guys on the three spot,
Yeah.
And man, you can take, I don't even care what game it is. It looks like the same fucking play over and over and over and over. Right. Just take them down to 10 feet and jump up in the air and fade away and hit an easy jump shot. And we have the same, our wings guarding these guys, and our wings are all 6'5".
Yeah. I somebody is suggesting we'd start Vando for Rui and it slots everybody better. In theory, I think that's true. I just think that Rui Hachimura plays better as a starter.
He does,
and I think
he does, and he's played really. I
think like a record. I think everything you look at bears that out.
That we got from him last night. Those were two really clutch threes from him and two clutch threes from D'Lo.
And I loved how he took those threes after he had gone 1 for 10. He was 1 for 10 when those two threes went.
It was his worst night up to that point.
But he stayed. But that's what I mean. Like he stayed with it. He didn't turn the shot down. He didn't do something stupid and
he has a shot at most improved if he could continue to play this well all year.
He just has to play. He just has to play his game, and he's playing his game. I think he found his game a couple years ago, and then last season, I think people forget a lot how he wasn't really available until the year turned over. He had that calf injury out of camp. And then he got that nasal, and then he had that nasal fracture, and he didn't. Even when he came back, he did not play well when he had the mask.
He didn't like that mask.
He didn't like that mask.
I can understand that, man. I tell you.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like he didn't come around.
It's hard to play in a mask.
He didn't come around until after he lost the mask, until after he'd gotten over the calf injury, right? And so that's one of the things that people I sort of think conveniently forget or just forget in
Well,
general.
you look at what he was as a starter last year, and you wouldn't be surprised by how well he's done this year. As a starter last year, he averaged 16.7 points a game, 5.5 boards, shot 43% from three, and 57% from the field.
Yeah, he found his spots, and that's what I like about Rui, is that he knows where his offense comes from. He understands and completely accepts and embraces his role, and he doesn't seem like he's chafing for more, right? He doesn't ever seem like he's like pushing to be a bigger part of the pie.
And he's hitting the boards harder, which was one of his biggest problems.
Yes, I agree. I look at Hachimura and Reeves as being equally untouchable. I think Reeves is considered too untouchable by the Lakers, if I'm being honest. I think that there are some trades for some players that I would certainly include Reeves for.
Neither are untouchable.
If you read around, man, they're like, oh, if we get Giannis,
but that's posturing. If that's a trade for Giannis, if it's a trade for anybody big and important that would be a third star on the team, Reeves has.
Well, you got to keep one of the two of them. No, you can't trade all those guys, otherwise we have a terrible team. But I'm not expecting a trade like that anyway. I'm hoping for the expiring contracts to get moved by February. That is my trade market. Like anybody who's expiring that helps another team with good players get further under the cap and opens up a roster spot for us is a win trade for me. Like I don't need a Zach LaVine, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't need a trade of that level.
Yeah, but JHS and Lewis got to go. That's just. We had to do trade. We need roster spots.
All right.
Roster spots.
I completely agree. I would love to see Koloko get converted for we'll see how let's let him play in the G League for like a week and see how he's doing. But like we'll
need to convert him at some point, I think. And I think I'm hoping that they've had conversations with Lonnie Walker and they've told him just sit tight.
Well, here's the problem.
I don't know. Listen, given Lonnie Walker's interview after he scored 15 points in the playoffs and won a game for us, it doesn't sound like he's very high on the Lakers as an organization. Having said that, I think if we offered him a path back to the NBA, he would gladly take it.
Look at who is the coach. I thought the most ludicrous post that I saw today was the Bucks talking about Lonnie Walker coming to the Bucks. There's no way Lonnie Walker is join a team with Darvin Ham as a head coach or as his assistant.
We'll see. I think he'll take any path back to the NBA. What are your thoughts on Lonnie Walker for Michael?
Well, I don't think, as much as I like him, I don't know if he's the answer.
We know, Gerald. We know.
I basically think that
him or Christie, Michael.
Well, right now, him or Christie, probably Lonnie Walker. But here's the problem: I want to see what we look like when we have a couple more of our major guys back. I want to see what we look like. I really do.
But none of our major guys are playing the position that Christie's playing.
He's including Christie on the list because we gave him the deal. We gave him a 4-year deal with a. It's
here's the one thing that Christie can do.
That contract that
it's
before we can trade. They didn't want to lose him for nothing.
Before
they could have matched.
Before we can move some of these guys, it's too early because people are still asking too much.
Yeah,
to move people. I mean, we don't have a ton of seconds. We only have 4.
We have 4 seconds and 2 firsts. That's it.
And teams are no longer asking for a second to take on a contract. They're asking for 2, 3, 4 seconds to take on a contract. So, and now that won't continue throughout the entire year. I don't believe as we get closer and teams are starting to look at their team and saying, well, let's next year's supposed to be.
But you're right, Michael. The price has gone up, and it probably will stay up the rest of this CBA because
I don't know if it'll stay up. What's going to happen, I think, is teams are going to say, well, let's, there's 2 or 3, 4 potential franchise players in the draft next year. Let's go try to grab one of those guys. And that's when you're going to start seeing some moves being made, some draft teams kind of saying, okay, we're going nowhere.
I don't think we don't have next season's draft pick. I think next season is the last one that goes to New Orleans,
Right.
from the AD trade. So we have, I think we have a second rounder in next year's draft, and that might be it.
I think we actually have 2 second rounders, one of ours and one of somebody else's.
Okay, maybe from Washington in the Rui trade. All right, okay. So in regards to Lonnie Walker, one, it was yet another. I've said this early on. I was roundly ridiculed, and I'm not saying it was going to be an exodus of players, but I said that there would be more NBA caliber players signing in Europe because they can get paid, and there's not going to be enough. There's not going to be enough money for them. And here we got Lonnie Walker, Pat Bev. There's a third one who I'm forgetting. There's another one who I was like, that guy's NBA caliber, and I was surprised that he signed overseas as well, except that I wasn't, because there wasn't enough money for these guys to make. And at the end of the day, you don't want to get stuck playing vet minimum contracts when you're 27, 28, 20. Like, you are now slotting yourself in a money range. You want to do what Dennis Schroeder did. Go overseas, go ball out, bet on yourself, make more money, and then show people that you can do more in the NBA, and maybe you get a biennial exception next summer or from somebody or something like that. I think it's a smart path for low level NBA talent that's better than vet minimum, or they think they are, and they have to prove it. You're not going to prove it just signing vet minimum deals and sitting as the 13th man on Brooklyn's bench. So I think Lonnie Walker made a good choice for his career. Like, go where they're going to play you, go where they're going to pay you. If you're not getting paid and you're not playing, you're not going to make more money. And it's just as simple as that. So yes, Jared, we're all aware that Tom is aware that Lonnie Walker signed in some European teams.
His contract will have an out in it.
I'm sure it does, and it would be silly of him not to do so. Like, you're doing this to stay NBA ready. You're doing this to further your career. You're not doing this because you've accepted.
You're doing this to make a living.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And like, he didn't get a vet. He didn't even get an offer. He wasn't able to get an offer this season. In terms of like, could we have gotten Lonnie Walker for over Max Christie? I'm not sure that we could have at the time. I will forever say that we could have matched any deal for Christie. We could have probably signed him for a couple mil less, which would have been nice. But we still would have been at 15 roster spots. So it's kind of irrelevant. Point being, it's I don't expect this is going to change during the CBA. I think every year you're going to see a couple of guys, and it might be Christian Wood and Cam Reddish next year, right? Next summer, you might see that Cam Reddish and Christian Wood can't latch onto a team for any amount, and they end up going and playing in, somewhere else. Turkey, Tel Aviv, wherever.
But both of those guys are, you sometimes get out of you lose your perspective with players because they're on the Lakers. But if you look at the track records of both of those guys, they've been trending down and turning towards going out of the league.
Sure,
Lakers are close to their last shot. Cam Reddish has been. I don't think Cam has any chance of going. I think if Wood could resurrect his shooting this year, I think he'll be fine. But Reddish is pretty well shown that he's not going to make it.
I think he would as a defensive stopper if he accepted that role, and if he really dedicated himself to that. I think you could see him as a role of guy off the bench to help shut down an opposing microwave score, because I think he could do that. I think with him it's both a combination of he's unable to stay healthy and he doesn't shoot very well. And if you don't acknowledge that early and adapt your skill set early, it just makes it harder, because as you're saying, once you get pigeonholed as something in the NBA, it's hard to get yourself out of that hole. It's hard to rewrite your narrative once you're 5, 6, 7 years into your career. Everybody kind of assumes like, this is what you are, this is what you're going to be, and these are your limitations. And it's hard to get past that assumption. All right, we got about 10 minutes to go here. We got 2 games left on this road trip. I think it's going to be real tough to win in Memphis. I think that we have to win in Detroit to salvage the road trip in general. If you go 1-4 on the road trip, that's basically a disaster, right? Nobody wants to go 1-4 on the 5-game road trip. So going 2-3 is a salvageable thing. Going 3-2 would be great. I just think that because of, and this is where I wanted to get into the 1-4 switching everything. What I've started to observe is the way the Lakers are executing it at this time. It's either creating one of 2 conundrums, and I don't see a good way out of it. If you're switching everything, quick guards like Garland and Morant and Booker are getting into the seams and they're getting to the basket and they're creating offense or scoring, and that's a problem. Or once we lay off the screens a little more and allow them to kind of go behind the screens, if they're good enough shooters like Phoenix was, they're shooting over the screen, or they're shooting over the defender rather, and they're getting hot from three. It requires the team to play at a level of physicality that I'm not sure some of the guys have in them for 82 games. Like, if you're going to switch everything, you have to be hitting hard on the screener, and you have to not lay off the contact and go like really far around off the back, because then you're opening up 3-point shots, or you're creating a seam for a guy to drive past between the two defenders, split the defense. I don't know that there's a better generalistic defensive scheme for us to play right now. I've seen us go to like a weird 2-3 man zone at times. It was a little bit more in the preseason than I've seen in the regular season. And I think we don't play a lot of man to man that I've seen, unless it's in like transition. But our
as we chase the three guys down the court,
right. As we chase this, right, exactly. And our transition defense has been god awful so far. So I'm curious to hear. And I know, Tom, you're a big proponent of switch everything. So I'm going to start with you. Bear in mind that we only have 7-ish minutes left, 10 minutes left. So let's attempt brevity. Myself as well, all of us. But how are you feeling about the 1-4 scheme right now? And do you think it's one of the reasons that we're seeing an uptick in or a lack of transition defense because we're trying to settle into this scheme in transition, or what?
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with the transition defense. Transition defense is going to be dependent upon two things: turnovers and offensive rebounding. You either, it doesn't really have anything to do with whether we switch or don't switch. The purpose behind switching everything 1-4 is pretty simple, that it's easier to keep the man in front of you, which reduces penetration. It's not always works, as obviously a good quick guard can go by somebody anytime.
Right.
But it saves you a lot of energy in fighting over screens, and it works. It's more compatible with the drop coverage, because if you're going to fight over screens, you're constantly letting ball handlers put their defender in jail and get those easy floaters and mid-range jumpers. So I think it makes total sense that we've got a switching technique now, or process, that is compatible with the drop coverage that we play. And then when AD is involved in it, we have different options, because he's the guy who's going to come off the screen. I think it comes down to how the players are playing it, because obviously what you need to do, there's still some question about what does a defender who's switching do. Does he come out and attack the player coming over? Does he sit back on him? And that all depends upon the kind of player that you're guarding. If it's a guy who can shoot, you're going to come up obviously on him and really tough. If he's a guy who can shoot and drive, then you've got a double edge, because if you come up on him tough, he can go by you.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, number one, I think that we have the right strategy now to go forward. Now what we just need to do is to work on executing it. And then secondly, at some point in time, we have to realize that we're not going to probably win a championship with Russell and Reeves as the two guys doing that switching, because both of them are to some extent players that are often people try to isolate. So, I think we have to, one way or another, we're going to have to replace one of them with a better defender, and that will dramatically help the situation. And then even at various times in the games that you may see, this is where I think that Vanderbilt playing shooting guard becomes an important factor, because he's the guy you can put in there that will all of a sudden, if we had another good defender, we could all of a sudden have a change up that was very strong defensively. So I'm in favor of the switching moves that JJ has made. I've been lobbying for it for 5 years, and it will be successful. It's a better way, and it's a more compatible way of defending the perimeter, since we're using drop coverage.
Michael?
Yeah, I just want to give it some more time. I mean, 6 games to me on a new system is just a little too early to really judge how it's going to work. It's a good system. I don't think, Austin's become a much better defender. The problem, the reason why I like the concept is because D'Lo has slow feet.
Yeah.
And
he's
and
unathletic. He's not an athletic guard.
this really helps hide him. When you're switching everything, so you can keep us. And every team has got a defensive liability they got to hide on their lineup. So it's nothing. Just it's not just the Lakers, but I like the way that and like Tom said, and also we're going to be able to bring more defense in. Once we get Vandal back, we're going to be able to bring another defender in when we need them. It was kind of funny last year. We were getting blown out with Ham's defensive lineups. When we switched to an offensive lineup, we were literally 10 to 15 points down in every first quarter practice. It seemed like with our defensive lineups. Once we went to a lineup featuring offensive-minded players, we were at least a little ahead, a little behind, but we were right there, because we were able to score. So I'm going to give it a little bit more time to see what we really need to do as far as but like I said, it helps hide D'Lo. Austin's become a lot more aggressive on defense. That's one of the things he's really raised his game on, I think. So we'll see. But also, it takes some pressure off of LeBron as well. LeBron's not having to chase people as often either.
I agree. I think that's the main thing, is that it seems like I like that it seems to me in this moment. I think you're right. Time in a new system is always needed. And we're only, as you say, only 6 games in. I generally don't even try to analyze where a team is at until 20 games in. But the fact of the matter is that the games count. If you tumble down in the standings, early, as we've seen the last couple of years, it gets harder and harder to make up a 10, 15 game gap that you put yourself in October, November. It's hard to make up that ground in March, February, March. And so if we can avoid that kind of tumble down the standings, if we can stay around top 5 for the early part of the season, and listen, I give last year's team a lot of credit. They were able to come into, once they got that starting lineup issue figured out, however they got there, whether it was Rob telling Darvin, I'm going to fire you in the summer if you don't start playing Rui, or if it just was that Rui eventually was healthy enough or whatever. We'll never know. I gave that team a lot of credit for getting to the point where they could have popped into the top 6 if another team had tumbled a little more, right? They were right there. And the last 5 slots of the whole Western Conference was a toss-up until the final game of the season, if I recall, maybe the final 2. And so you just want to, if you can be above that fray, if you could be watching that all happen below you for the end of the regular season, and just just be better in the regular season. It's just going to make your playoffs.
Phil Jackson used to say he couldn't tell what kind of team he had until December.
I tend to agree with Phil.
There's some truth in
that. Well,
yeah,
but he had pretty good teams.
He always had pretty good teams. But I mean, he had pretty good teams. But even then,
what was our record last year after 20 games, Jerry?
Oh, I think we were under 5. We were under 500. I want to say.
Oh yeah.
I think we were 12-8. I'm sorry, 8-12.
8-12.
I want to say. I could be wrong. But again, there was a lot of injuries. LeBron started really slow last year. Austin started really slow last year. He had a rough start to last season.
He was tired.
He was beat from the summer playing basketball. And talk about a guy who got picked on. He got picked on. By the end of summer, he was getting beat up. They were getting him on every screen and then taking him into the post. And he, I think, learned a lesson from that, because I feel like, I don't know how much stronger he is. He looks like he's able to hold his ground better, whether that's footwork, more muscle, a little bit of both, or just fresher legs even. I'm not too sure.
Maybe all 3.
A little bit of that's probably accurate, Michael. Probably a little bit of all 3. I don't know who Markin Farrer is, but yeah, we're all killing it, bro. Don't worry about it. Anyway, we're coming up on 1:00. I know we got some things to do with our lives, and so I think this is. If you have anything closing you'd like to tack on to today's show, Michael, Tom, this is the time to do it. I'm happy with where we're at. personally. I'll start. I'm happy with where we're at. I'm gonna be critical of JJ Redick for as long as he's the Laker coach, and I was critical of the last Laker coach for as long as he was the Laker coach because I'm a critical human being, and so that's what we do. I'm not, that's what I do. So bring back Jordan Farmar. I don't know. I don't even know if he's like coaching anywhere. I think he's just like playing golf and hanging out. And congrats to
have you guys seen who's in the top 10 of assists in the NBA right now?
Two guys in there that we know about. Dennis Schroeder
Jr.
Yeah,
LeBron James.
And LeBron, yeah. I wish we hadn't given up on Scottie Pippen Jr. I like Scottie Pippen Jr. way more than I like Max Christie. But
he didn't want to go to the Bucks because of, or he wanted to guard Dame because of the coach on the Bucks that he used to coach the Lakers.
Right. I'm sure that. Well, that's a lofty assignment to want because Dame's a volcano that's always just about ready to erupt.
Except this year.
He'll get there, I think. Oh, maybe not.
He's like a volcano that's been plugged.
He's getting up there, man. I don't blame Dame time. I like Dame. I mean, it's not.
So do I, but he's 34 now, and he can't.
That's what I'm saying. Anymore. And guards don't age well. Guards don't age well in the NBA. Guards do not age well in the NBA. So, Vogel is a consultant. Yes, Gerald. Vogel is consulting Jason Kidd in Dallas, and I think probably enjoying that as much as anything else. So, anyway, Tom, anything about the?
No, I feel the same as you guys do. I'm happy with where we are. I wish we'd won the Suns' second game.
That's fine.
And I think that the month of November, I'd like to see a small trade to get us some more size to help us during that period of time. But even if we don't make a trade during November, I think we have a good chance to finish 8-2 or 7-3 on the next 10 games.
We can't trade Christie until December 15th. So
yeah, that's why I'm not interested in trading him at this point in time.
I see, because you want to trade to happen sooner.
No, because I don't. The last thing I want to see is a December 15th trade for a center that I think would be a terrible waste of our resources.
Like
Vukovic, guy who I would not want to start.
Vukovic, Valanciunas, one of those guys.
Yeah,
forget it. I don't want one of those guys.
Yeah,
it's not the solution.
Michael, I think you're looking at just more time and analysis.
Yeah, I got to get moving, but I'm just thinking that again, I'm happy with where we're at, and I kind of agree with Tom.
How about JJ?
The next 10 games are, I think, set up for a decent record over the next 10. It's much easier than the first 5.
Yeah. If we get to 15 games and we're like 10-5, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, me too. That would be a good result for this team.
I think that's a very positive. That
one
probably
other
be
thing
good.
that
I like the ratio of winning twice as many games as you lost.
Another thing that hasn't been mentioned that I think will improve is we got guys who can shoot 3-point shots. They haven't been following.
That's a good point.
We
haven't talked about
we
that
have guys who can make them. They just haven't been making them. At that, I think that will get better.
I think so
really
too.
Do.
I think so.
And
Michael
D'Lo kind of broke out last night, so fingers crossed.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say if D'Lo can just get on track of his career average, our 3-point shooting starts to look a lot better. Right now, last night was a pretty good game. We shot 33%. That's fine, right? You would like to be creeping up towards 40, but if you shoot around 35% as a team, I generally consider that to be a decent expectation. Like you're shooting okay, you're making 1 out of every 3 roughly. Little more.
The single biggest thing that I think,
but I like the shots we're taking.
The single biggest thing I feel good about right now is JJ Redick. I think that everything that he has done so far has been spot on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's made some great adjustments. I think that he's open to. I just think that it was, whether it's his intelligence, his preparation, his ability to analyze and break down, that he developed as a player, and then use those skills to become a successful podcaster. I think that he's got a lot of the tools that make up a successful head coach. My question was never, I think the same thing about a lot of guys. I thought the same thing about Luke Walton. I thought Luke Walton had a lot of tools that would make for a successful. So there's a difference for me between the potential to do something and the actuality of it. And so I was never and to be honest, offense was never my question either. For me, it was always, how's our defense going to look? And so if he can really start to reduce the turnovers in the offense, which will help reduce the transition deficiency that we're currently fighting against, I think that all will contribute to allowing us to get to that 10-5 plateau, or mountain, or whatever you want to call it.
A lot of the enthusiasm and positivity that all three of us feel, I think, is really due to JJ Redick.
Well, for me,
I think it's also
what he has done is he's taken he has taken the lineup. He said, okay, these are the guys. How can I make this group of guys better? Whereas Darvin Ham said, well, this is what I want to do. And his players didn't match what he wanted to do. You can't, a good coach. I mean, look at Phil. Phil, everybody talked about Phil and the king of the triangle offense. How often did the Lakers actually play the triangle offense?
On occasion.
On occasion, right.
On occasion.
On occasion.
A lot more LeBron freelancing with that offense than we're seeing right now, actually.
Well, and you know what? I think that JJ runs some like triangle 101 sets, and I put it in some of my posts. There's some times where he clears 2 guys out on the side and 3 guys are moving around on the other side of the court.
Well, triangles are a big part of basketball, man, no matter how you cut it.
That's right. All right. Anyway, Michael's got to go. We all got life to live. I'd like to thank Laker Tom and Michael, of course, Gerald, for
3 more wins this week. We're going to finish the weekend with 3 wins.
I think Memphis is going to be hard. I'm predicting Memphis. I'm calling
Memphis
Memphis
will be the blowout.
Memphis is going to be a loss. I hate to say it. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. So whoever was asking me to be negative, there you go. We're going to get killed in Memphis, and it's not even going to be close, and it's going to be the worst loss in Laker history.
God, I don't even want to ask you about the election. Don't even say a word.
Okay, I have to go, guys. Aloha.
All right. Goodbye,
in the blog right now.
We're gonna everybody vote. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and thanks for the best chat ever. And thank you, Gerald, Joe, and the entire extended list of Fast Rate Bradley. Have a great day.
Okay. Good guy.